So while you guys are finishing up your faces and your whiskers, maybe tying off your thread, I'm just going to thread my needle. The next thread we're going to use is the brown cream thread. So I'm only going to give myself maybe like half of it. So not all of it, otherwise my thread will be super long. So I've given myself, I'll just measure it so that you have an idea. So it's about 60 centimeters doubled. So I always try to do it like my arm's length. So I hold it in my hand. And that's like a good gauge so that it's not too long that it gets all tangled while you're sewing. I just try to keep it like my arm's length. So that's doubled my arm's length. So I always double my thread. So I'll just thread my needle. And I should have lots still on my bobbin because I might need to rethread my needle halfway through. Just see how I go. So I've got my needle on there, and then I'll flip you around to show you the knot again. I just have two ends around my finger. I wrap it once and roll it off my finger and pull. Then I've got a nice big knot. So my thread is ready to go. I still have lots left in case I need to add more thread. I'm going to get my other mouse piece, stick them together, line them up so I can see where they're going to stick. And then next I'm going to cut my ears. So mice have nice big round ears. So everyone should have some little bits of felt, either one big one or two smaller pieces. So you can just use your scissors to cut out. Maybe the mums want to help with this bit a bit. Try to cut it bigger than smaller, and you can always trim it down, whereas if you start with really tiny ears then it's hard to make them bigger. So cut nice big ones. I think that might be a little bit too big, so I just trim a little tiny bit off. And I don't know about you, but my two ears are not exactly the same, so you don't have to worry about them being totally the same. I always just freehand it. So you can cut around a little ear. My scissors need a sharpening. They're not cutting that too well. So there we go, about two little ears. The pink we'll do later, so don't worry about that. Just as long as you've got your two little ears cut. I can see this one is quite a bit bigger than my other one. I'll just trim a little bit off. There we go. So I've got two little ears, so just have those ready. And then just trim this a bit. So for the mice, to stitch them together, we're going to use what's called an overstitch. So that's a kind of stitch that wraps around the outside of the mouse. So we're going to start, when we sew, we're going to start, if you're right-handed, you're going to start on this side. So you're going to imagine we're going to leave a little hole at the bottom of our mouse. So you want to start around like here on your mouse. If you're left-handed, then start over here. So you're going to start here, and we're going to sew around the edge And we're going to stop when we get to where the ear should be. And I'll show you how to put the ear in. And we're going to stitch around, put in the second ear, and go all the way down this side. Till about there, and that's when we stop. So if you need to change your thread, I probably will, so I'll change it and show you how to change it when I get there. And then we make sure we leave a little hole so that we can stuff our mice. Good. Okay. So we've got our thread all ready to go. So what you're going to do, I'll do this right-handed because I'm just going to guess that a lot of people will be right-handed on this. So we're going to hold both parts of our mouse together in our left hand. I just hold them like between my fingers like that. And then you think about your mouse as like a sandwich. So the little felt pieces are the bread. So you want to, just like how we did the face, you go up from the back, but you want to, for the first one, to only go through the top slice of bread there. So just the top one. And you pull so that your knot is hidden inside there. You just tuck that inside. Okay, then you can just hold your mouse like this, both layers together. So just so that it's like really clear on the camera, I'll just hold it like this. So for the overstitch, to make it wrap around the 2 layers of felt, this is the little phrase you need to tell yourself. Up from the bottom and pull. Oops, look, I've got a little knot. Oh, good. It's pulled out. Up from the bottom and pull. So up from the bottom, a little bit ahead, just jumping about a grain of rice ahead, up from the bottom and pull, up from the bottom and pull, up from the bottom and pull, up from the bottom and pull. You want to make sure you sew through both layers of the felt, and also that your stitches aren't like too far apart, but also not too close. Otherwise, it will take you hours and hours to sew around your mouse. So try to get that kind of even stitching around the side. And we're just going to work our way up to where the ear should be. So up from the bottom and pull. Up from the bottom and pull. Up from the bottom and pull. And we're just going to work our way around our little mouse. This is a little bit awkward to do with your like less dominant hand, so but we're going to make our way all the way around. I think I'm nearly there. Sometimes you can get the thread just like gets twisted on itself, so usually you can just pull it. If it looks like just like a pull through loop, you can usually just pull it through, and it means that your thread might be a bit twisted, so maybe just smooth it out a bit. It just curls up on itself and makes a little knot. If you get like a really big knot, one that doesn't pull out easily, I usually just tuck it inside and then just keep going. So I think I'm nearly where I want my ears down there. Yeah. Might do one more stitch. So we're going to go up from the bottom and pull. And then to tuck in the ears, you might not be there yet, but I'll just show you now so that you know how to do it. So using our little sandwich analogy, we're just going to open up our sandwich, stick our ears inside like that. So the ears are inside. You can tuck it in a little bit so that you know that it's not right at the edge. And then we're just going to do the running stitch for where the ears are. So the running stitch is usually the very first stitch that we learn for sewing. So that's the one that goes down and up, down and up. So we're going to go down, back up from the back, down, through all 3 layers of the felt there, back up, and down again, depending how big your mouse ear is. I think that's good. So I've got 3 little stitches there. And then you'll switch back to the overstitch. So that's up from the bottom and pull. Up from the bottom and pull until you get to where you want your next ear to be. So just keep sewing around. There we go. So when you're ready for your second ear, you just do the same as you did for the first. You just sandwich it in between your 2 pieces of felt. And then you're going to do the running stitch for a few stitches just to stitch it in. So when you poke it through, just make sure that you're going through the back of the mouse and that you're catching all the different layers. I'll try to turn this around. So you're going to go back through, and then I can see on the front. Fine, pull it through, and then down. Oops, got another little knot here. So all my knots so far have just been these like little twists in the thread, so just watch out for that. Make sure my thread isn't twisted too much. Then I'm just going to go down. And then just mind you don't get your thread looped around one of the one of the ears. There you go. Down this way. So I've got both of my ears in. And then you're just going to keep going down the side of your mouth till you get about here. And we're going to leave a little hole. So I'm going to just finish that bit. So remember to switch back to the overstitch after you finish your ears. So remember that's up from the bottom and pull. Up from the bottom and pull. And keep making your way around. There you go. Up from the bottom, pull. And I'm nearly there at the bottom now. So you don't want to have, you want to make sure you've got a little bit of a gap there so that there's enough room to stuff your little mouse. So might just do one more stitch and I'll just talk about the kind of stuffing that we use. So my mouse, I've got actually that was just enough thread to do the whole mouse, was that arm's length. So I haven't had to switch my thread, which is good. So I've got lots left over. If you have a little tail on your needle, just leave it on your needle because you can use that thread, what's left, to just stitch up the bottom after you stuff it. So once you've sewn around, then we're going to stuff. At all my workshops and everything, we always use 100% wool stuffing. So you should have a little bag with some fluff. So here's mine. It smells a bit sheepy because it's wool. So I like to use the wool because most of our teddies at home are actually filled with polyester stuffing, which is basically made out of plastic. So we want to have like really nice mice that are filled with like all natural fibers. So the felt that we use is made out of wool and viscose, which is a fiber made out of wood pulp, which is like ground up pieces of wood. And then the thread that we've used is 100% cotton, which we know is also a natural fiber. And so we want our mice to have also something really good inside, a nice quality. So we've got 100% wool that they've just sheared off the sheep. So sometimes if you're lucky, you might have a little bit of hay in your little bundle of wool. Sometimes you might see different colors because we know I've got a bit of brown wool there. We know that sheep aren't all white. There's different types of sheep and they have different types of wool. So the thing to remember about the wool is that because it's from an animal, we need to make sure that, oh look, I got a little bit of hay in mine too. We need to make sure that we wash our hands after we finish stuffing our mice, like at the end of the workshop, just that before you eat lunch, make sure you're washing your hands if you've been touching the wool. In the same way that you would wash your hands after you pet a dog, that sort of thing. So it is like cleaned, but it's just like a good idea to wash your hands after you handle the wool. So when you're ready to stuff, you're just going to pull off a little bit of the wool, just little sections at a time. And then you're going to just stuff using your finger all the way up to your little mouse's head. And then just squish it down a little bit. Till he's not like, so the trick with the stuffing is to not make your mouse like bursting, but just like pleasantly stuffed. Maybe it's like how he would be before he's eaten his Christmas dinner. So not like bursting at the seams, literally, but just like nice and like padded. You don't want to undo all this lovely stitching that you've just done. So just fill up your mouse just by doing a little bit at a time, squishing it down and just seeing where you could add a bit more fluff. But make sure with your first one, you're pushing it all the way up to the top of the head. And then when you get here, you still have to stuff his little bottom. So make sure you're filling it all the way to the bottom as well. So you just keep pulling off little bits from your bundle of wool and stuff it in until I think that's quite good. You've got it kind of sticking out a little bit. You can just use your fingers to stuff it in. You might have some little fibers sticking out, but that's fine. If they're too sticky outy, you can always just trim them with your scissors later. But it should be nice and full. All the way kind of to the top there. So that's how it looks when it's stuffed. So once you've stuffed, you're going to sew up the little hole you've left at the bottom in the same way that you sewed around your mouse. So up from the bottom. So just do your best to just pinch it together, especially if his bottom is quite full. Make sure you're going through both layers and just work your way around that little gap. There we go. And I've got a few little bits of wool sticking out there, so just sew that closed. Well, my arm's length was the perfect amount of thread. Has anyone had to change their thread while they've been going around, or you had the same amount? So I've got one more stitch to do. You can see there's one last one. And when I get to all of us, I guess my arms are a little bit longer. Yeah, it slows you down a little bit when you've got to change your thread. So I've got some little bits of wool. So when I'm ready to tie the knot, I'll show you what I do. So I've come up on my last little stitch. So to make your knot, you put your needle back just like you do another stitch, but you're not going to pull it all the way through this time. You're going to pull, and you can see you've got a little loop here. So to make our knot, we're just going to sew through the loop and the pull, and you're going to do that 2 times. So you do another little stitch, and instead of pulling it all the way, you're going to put your needle through that loop and then pull that. And it makes, it's hard to see like so close up on this video, but you'll make 2 little knots there. And then instead of just cutting that and having a little tail, I will show you a trick to hide your stitching. So you just put your needle in and you can come out anywhere on your mouse, but what you want is to have your thread going down close to the edge. It can come out anywhere, doesn't matter. And then if you pull it a little bit and cut, your thread tail will be hidden inside your mouse. Then you don't have any little sticky outy bits on your mouse. So it's all tidy and cute. So that's the little mouse done.